Hi! Today we're going to be looking at how to add a VLOOKUP to a Google form. So the first thing that we're going to need to do for this is to create our form. And the reason why this is a little bit confusing is because we're going to be creating a form, and when people fill out our form, basically it adds rows to our Google spreadsheet. And we want the value lookup to be applied to any additional row that's inserted. So we're going to need to do a couple features in Google Spreadsheets in order to make this work. And the whole purpose of our VLOOKUP that we're using is we want someone to be CC'd on an email that we're going to be sending through this form. So let's start off with the form. So here's our VLOOKUP. This is a test form. I've entered a couple fields here. And we're going to look at this email address field right now just to show you one cool feature of Google Forms. So we're going to edit this section here. And what I've enabled here is a data validation. And so we want to validate that the text is indeed an email address, because in order for us to send our form recipients an email, we need to add the email address needs to be valid. So we can type an error that they'll get if it's not a valid email address. So we could say, you know, this is not a valid email address. You can be a little cheeky there if you want. Alright, so, and then I forgot to make this want to make sure that it's a required question, because that's the only way that you're going to be able to automatically send them an email when they complete the form. We're going to add a few other questions here, just kind of basic ones. We're going to add one that is choose your school. And we're going to make this a choose from a list. So, just call them different fruits. So people are going to choose a school, and again, a required question, and based off the school that they choose, we're going to CC the principal of that school. So you see the choose your school button there. We're going to add one more question, and we're just going to say, what is your favorite ice cream? It's going to be a text, it's going to be required. Alright, so here's our basic form. We're going to choose a response destination. We want it to be in a new spreadsheet. So it's going to populate for us right now. Alright, so I'm going to click on my spreadsheet here. So I see that I have my fields. Now I'm going to add a sheet at the bottom here, and I'm going to call this principal email. And I'm going to make it one word. So I'm going to add a heading here, principal email, and I'm going to add a school. So here, under school, is where I need to use the schools that I've input here. So I'm going to copy these if I can, which I can't, so I can remember that those are schools. We said Apple. Alright, so what you'll notice I added in right here are I have my schools, and then I have the quote-unquote principal email address of that school. So I have two columns, and then I'm going to add one more column here. So I'm going to add a count. And so what the count is going to do is it's going to tally every time this principal receives an email. So we're going to use the formula that is going to be a count if. So we want it to count, so go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, if something is equal to this. So we're going to type in count if, and we see that this pops up here, so this can kind of prompt us. Basically, we're going to need to put the range in, what do we want it to look at, and the criteria. So our range is going to be in form responses, and so we want it to be this school, so we want it to be this column here, and we want it to be that whole column, okay? And then we want, after this, we want to put this cell number. So we want it to say, if it's Apple, we want it to count. So we're going to say A2 because that's the cell we want it to reference. And then right now you can see that it's at 0. And I'm going to just drag this down for each of these. And you'll notice that this has changed to A3 because I'm wanting it to reference banana. That's the criteria. What we're going to need to do is we need to add our VLOOKUP to the sheet that has the form responses in it. So I'm going to title this column here, Principal CC, because what we're wanting to do is we're wanting to CC the school principal that the form person who filled out the form selected. Okay, so basically for banana, we want to CC the banana principal. Okay, so in this cell here is where we need to put our VLOOKUP formula. So we're going to do our basic VLOOKUP formula first, and then we're going to add on what is called an array formula in order to make this work for a form. Because basically what a form does is rather than filling out these rows that are already present, it inserts new rows every time someone responds. In this cell here, we titled it Principal CC. This is the principal that we're going to CC. We need to type in this cell here our VLOOKUP formula. What we need to do is we need to look at the various parts of our VLOOKUP formula. So if I type equals VLOOKUP, this pops up. So these prompts allow us to fill in our form correctly. So the first item is the search criterion, which is the exact value searched for in the column of the array. So the column that we want to search is actually in our form response sheet. So it's the school. It's this column here. It's column E. The array is the reference, which must include at least 2 columns. So we're looking to this value, and then we're actually searching, we're referencing these 2 columns here. And what you'll notice is that I've actually reversed these. I actually want the school first, and I want the principal email second, and that'll be clear in a moment. So if I keep typing this to get my prompts up again, the index is the number of the column in the array that contains the value to be returned. So if I go back to this sheet, the value that I want returned is in this second column here. It's the email address that I want returned. In the first part of this video, I actually had these columns reversed. I had the school second, so it was trying to return the value that it was searching for, and it wasn't working. So you want the value that to be returned to be in your second column. And if we do this one more time, we just need to, there's one more piece of this formula. So that was our index, and the sort order, we're going to keep the sort order as false because we want an exact match to be returned. All right, in this cell, we're going to put our VLOOKUP. So we're going to type the words VLOOKUP, and then we're going to type our formula that we've been working on. So the column that I want it to reference is column E. Okay, and now in Excel you can click as this, and it's going to populate it here. But what I really want this column to do is I want it to reference starting at row 2. So, and I want to lock that in. And the way you lock things in Excel is you use dollar signs. And sorry, not Excel, Google Spreadsheets. So I'm going to say $E, $2, because I want it to lock in at E2. You can see that this cell has been called out now. And I want it to run through $ to lock it, the entire column. But what this is telling me, what this is telling this cell is that I only want it to start looking at row 2. I don't want it to look at row 1 because that's my header. All right, I'm going to put comma. I'm going to tell it to reference the sheet that's titled Principal Email. Okay. And I'm going to actually click over to this sheet, and I'm going to select the text that I want it to reference. So I want it to start at A2 and run through column B. So those are the ones that I wanted to reference, and it's not going to populate it actually because I typed in principal email here. So it's going to be principal email, and I want it to start, again, I want to lock it in, so I'm going to put $A, $2, because I want it to start looking at row 2, and I want it to run through column B. Okay, so that's how I'm going to lock those in there. I want it to return the value in that second column on the principal email sheet, and I want it to only return the exact value, so I'm going to put in false. Okay? And there we go. It's returning the value banana because it's looking at school. I'm going to drag this down in Google Spreadsheets, and it's going to populate those. Now what our issue is that if anyone else fills this in, this formula is not going to populate to the rows that come next. So we need to add some information to this. So I'm going to go over here to this notepad that I've pulled up here, and this is the formula that we need to create. Okay. So as you can see in the middle here, I have the VLOOKUP formula that we already created. Excuse me, through this number 2. Okay. This other additional information is going to allow us to utilize column G and basically attach this formula to every cell that is in this column. So if we look at the formula, basically the first thing that we need to type is array formula, as you see above. Okay, array formula. Then we paste in our VLOOKUP formula. Sorry about that. We paste in our VLOOKUP formula. So we're going to click this cell, we're going to paste this in. Okay, so now, and I'm going to delete that equal sign because it's within the parentheses. But now you see that after the 2, I have something else up here. So I'm going to delete this last part. We're going to put asterisk sign, row, parentheses. And then here's where, again, you see these dollar signs, because I want to lock in, okay, that I want it to be referencing no matter what is added to this spreadsheet, I always want it referencing column E starting at E2, okay? So, sorry, I keep clicking on that one. So I'm going to add in here dollar sign to lock it in. So dollar sign, column E, starting at cell 2, running through the length of column E, close those parentheses, and then I still want the value to be returned to be exact, so I'm going to put false. Okay, we're going to copy this and we're going to paste it in this first cell here and see if this works. Jumped back to this screen for a second because I noticed that I had a space in here, and you can see in this top one that we're trying to copy there is no space between array and formula. So I'm going to delete that. I'm going to copy this. So I've copied my array formula from this sheet, and now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paste it over this VLOOKUP, enter, and there it goes. So now what I have is all these little dashes populate, so that tells me that a formula is linked to that box. So now let's go to I'm going to submit another response here. We're going to see if this works. So since we're sticking with fruits and vegetables, and this will be lemon. Got a W there, W. I'm going to choose orange. My favorite ice cream flavor is sherbet. Okay, submit. Now I go back to my responses. It populated and it returned orange. So our VLOOKUP did indeed work.